And then is Matthew
21.
Stafford the next New York Giant Super Bowl MVP?
Not if the Pittsburgh Steelers have something to do with it. Go ahead there, Eddie Spaghetti.
The Steelers, I did see their name, but lately it's been a two-team race, it seems like, between Matthew Stafford and going to the Giants or Matthew Stafford going to the Raiders. It's also very strange how, like, Matthew Stafford always vacations near people that teams he wants to go to, like years back when he did it with Whitworth and McVay, and then now he's meeting up with Tom Brady. I forget where they were, one of the northern states here. And I just feel like, Sean McVay went on the other show I work on with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Andrew Whitworth, and it just reeked of a guy who was like, look, I love you as a head coach. I love you like as my quarterback. But I am not the general manager or the team owner, and there's no way we're going to double your salary to get you to like that number, that $50 million number, when you're 37 years old. And I just think that on the Giants side of things, with Joe Shane clearly on the hot seat, and it's just a bad draft in terms of like, look, a lot of people are coming around on Cam Ward and think Cam Ward could be a great playmaker.
As I told you, they would.
But the Giants always have seemed linked to Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders seems to be sliding rapidly in this draft. So I feel like he knows that if he brings in Stafford for the price and they could somehow keep that third pick, and they can get like a top guy, whether it's Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter or whatever, or even do the crazy thing, which would be to take a quarterback and kind of pull what the Falcons did. Although I do think that Stafford is head and shoulders right now above Kirk Cousins. I just feel like the amount of pressure on the Giants and like people hating Mara, he got pretty mediocre, lukewarm grades and like that NFLPA owners grading thing they do. And I just feel like that he has to make a splash to keep his job. Damn well that
I think that's correct. I think people don't consider that element of it. That Joe Shane is on the hot seat, so he has to do something for his own sake. The two ways to do it are to go get the $50 million free agent QB who likely is going to lead to 3 to 5 extra wins. The other way to do it in terms of job security that you hear about is, well, you can't hold my feet to the fire in year one of this rookie QB, right? You got to give us a little bit of runway, right, owner? So that would be the other way, but I don't know what ownership is thinking at this point about how much more rope they're gonna give Shane after the Dimes v. Saquon drama there.
Yeah, and he needs to do something that people are going to be happy about. And I also think that Brian Dable is probably in his ear being like, look, I was a hot commodity. I was a quarterback whisperer. And now people are kind of bashing him as a coach. And I mean, I think his track record is kind of proven that he can work with quarterbacks. I mean, he got Daniel Jones to win a road playoff game in 22. Like, I think he has, if he was with Stafford for, a year or two, I think they would work magic. And I do think that if they take a guy like Cam Ward, they could also figure that out. But to me, like the stars are aligned for better or for worse, because I'm not even sure how I feel about this, but the stars are aligning for the Giants to make a splash. And I think it wouldn't be the case if this was last year's draft or like a home run quarterback draft. I think it would be a slightly different feel, but I really do think there's a real chance that per the beat writers that Stafford could be a Giant. That's been the buzz right now in Indy.
I could see it, except for this, Hench. And, fans always get into this. Like, why would he go to blank team when there's no chance of them getting to the Super Bowl next year? It always, that is a distant second, if not third, to lifestyle and what your family and what the missus wants and who the coach is going to be and all the rest of it. But those all fall behind how much money you're going to get paid. He wants a lot of money to play for you. But if you're Matthew Stafford in the twilight, and to me, it's a foregone conclusion he's a Hall of Famer. If he cares about legacy and such things, the Giants are the wrong place to go, right? I mean, people in Pittsburgh are saying the same thing about why would he want to be on the Steelers, dude? The Steelers is so far away from being in contention. Steelers are closer to getting to a Super Bowl than the Giants are. How say you? Do you think that's a factor as far as you can read Matthew Stafford, the human being, from our distance here?
Well, I mean, Stafford's already got his chip, so that's less dire for him. The weird thing, and look, Neighbors is a lot more exciting than Pickens if you're looking to put up numbers. But Stafford comes to New York, has a very good season. Everything falls exactly right. The Giants finished third in that division. Like, it's not there that that division is stacked. I do think the Cowboys are the Cowboys are going to be bad. Like that's not a good situation there. But I don't.
If you care about that, that's exactly right. Like, oh, you're going to come over here, Stafford, against the defending Super Bowl champs and the rising star of the entire league, Jaden Daniels. Good luck. I think that gets in his way. And then the third most prominent option out there is with your old pal Brady, who remains. It's nice to see in our uneven society that one thing remains true. It is the baseline of our millennium is that Tom Brady is above the law. This is a guy who forces his way after all the glory with his pal Belichick, has to force his way, doesn't it? Not enough. Has to get away from Belichick to prove something or other. So he does, and maybe it was motivated by the fact that he wanted to buy he wanted to buy a division rival and install himself like Joe Pendleton and Heaven Can Wait. Like Beatty, he wants to install himself as the Dolphins starting quarterback, but then they catch wind of this. No, we're not going to allow that to happen. This stinks to high heaven. Okay, well, then I'll just go to another Florida team and win them a Super Bowl like a mercenary, and then I'll quit on them. And while I'm doing that, I'll also be in negotiations to buy yet another pro football team, this one in Las Vegas, and now he's meeting up skiing trips with Matthew Stafford and now claiming, random. I don't know how we happen to bump into each other. Hey, serendipity. Hey, it's worked out once again for pretty boy Brady. How say you?
Well, it's funny as you go through these options, like I would say, even though the Ravens and Bengals are very good, that the Steelers are closer than the Giants to getting to a Super Bowl, and that the Giants are closer than the Raiders to getting to a Super Bowl. I mean, it's funny, all three of those destinations have 2 or 3 teams that are better in your division. I mean, the arrow on the Chargers is headed up, and the Chiefs aren't going anywhere with Mahomes. So I don't know, does Stafford want to come lose to Bo Nix? Like that seems like the worst option of the 3. I feel like
after all this time, you don't buy that there's some voodoo that Brady can sprinkle on that and turn that thing around. I don't think that's out of bounds to think that in Vegas, it's a weird professional sports town, but it isn't entirely unappealing.
The only thing I wanted to sprinkle out there was like, if I totally agree that, like, I don't think the Giants, like what Hench said, Giants best case scenario, third place, like 100% agree with that. Steelers better team, 100% agree with that. But it's like what we talked about, the AFC versus the NFC. And it's like, is it easier to like get that NFC wildcard spot than it is to like go through the juggernaut of the AFC where every division's loaded? And then if you look what happens, like if Stafford leaves the Rams, depending on what they do, they're going to go downhill. They were, a play away from potentially, getting to the Super Bowl. And then you have like, the NFC South is kind of a mess right now. The North, depending on what Darnold happens, what's going on with the Vikings, like we don't know what McCarthy is. So I do feel like the path almost, if he goes to the Giants and is bringing a number of wins, 5, 6+ victories, I do think that there may be an easier chance for the Giants to kind of, sneak in backdoor to the playoffs, then go through the juggernaut of the AFC. That's the only saving grace of the Giants.
And Hench, the week starts with the intrigue of all the GMs taken to the podium and lying largely to the media. And as a reminder, this thing that the chip on the shoulder of the media, the food chain in sports media goes like, GMs and coaches condescend to the media, and then the media condescends to the fans. But still, the media in the middle there always is surprised when the GMs and coaches aren't 100% truthful about what they intend to do. Well, hey, what's the plan coming up here, Joe Shane, for the next 2 months? Like what? I mean, I don't really have answers. Omar Khan was more truthful. Like, I don't know who our quarterback's going to be. We have to figure it out. But he did concede what I told you for just about the last 11 and a half months, which was that up until, and we were talking about this, 6-8 weeks ago, the discussions that national voices at least were still having mid-December about the Steelers making a Super Bowl run with 36-year-old Russell Wilson. And it's one thing for outside voices, including the fans, including local and national media. If Mike Greenberg wants to fill a segment once a week talking up with his panel about whether or not you could see the Steelers maybe breaking through Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and somehow winding up in the Super Bowl, I consistently said that was never on the table. That was never an option. All it was going to do was provide comfort to Mike Tomlin to answer the critics who say, why aren't you doing more come January? Why aren't you guys winning playoff games? So he thought, as did Omar Khan, as did team leaders Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Minka Fitzpatrick, witnessed the fact that they went and campaigned to Russell Wilson to sign with the Steelers against what other options? Apparently none, at least as a starting quarterback. The Giants were interested. Funny that it's the same names as we're talking about with Matthew Stafford right now. Raiders and Giants, but it was murkier about whether or not he was a starter. Russell Wilson was like, come start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Never mind the evidence provided by the 31 other pro teams, including Sean Payton, the QB whisperer, who said, I'm going to pay tens of millions of dollars to get away from this cat. But Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and otherwise knew better than everybody. No, this guy, the way we play, this will lead to postseason results. Ultimately, like I told you, it was merely providing comfort. Maybe it would equal a playoff win. It was never going to equal a Super Bowl. And now, by sitting down Justin Fields, who at the time they sat him down, wasn't on a heater personally, but the team was winning. The formula was working. I said, do not bench Justin Fields now, because then it jeopardizes your chances of keeping Justin Fields. And for what? For 37-year-old Russell Wilson? This was a bad move at the time. It was a bad move to bench Justin Fields when you benched him. And now Justin Fields, ego or otherwise, may say, listen, I deserve the starting gig unquestioned. If you guys can't give it to me, I'll take my services elsewhere. And I can hardly blame him for that. Hench, how say you? Do you want to pat me on the back? I mean, I don't even know what I'm looking for from you, other than the validation of me being 100% right the whole time.
I was in full-throated agreement with you, so I don't have to say you were right and I was wrong. Russell, there just was an obvious ceiling on where Russell could take you, and ironically, he took you there. That was the ceiling. It's not a great place to be, actually. And all the things you just mentioned about Russell Wilson, I think, are also true for one-time Super Bowl winner Matthew Stafford, in that maybe he's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, but his best days aren't ahead of him. Matthew Stafford is not the guy who's going to go into a loaded New York Giants roster and get him over the top. It's like, no, that's a fucking work in progress in New York or in Las Vegas, so you're going to get like diminishing returns for a super amount of money so the GM can keep his job. It is funny how owners don't know very much about football. They buy these football teams and don't really understand how things go down. I did think it was funny as somebody who I think I'm a pretty well-liked boss. I'm sure some people would give me an F, but the fact that everybody hates Woody
One
Johnson.
of your employees got into my DMs recently to tell me that they enjoyed working with you.
Oh, so sweet. Which one?
I mean, you want me to, I don't know if that person wants to be outed in a public forum,
Someone's
guilt by
getting
association and all that.
Okay. Maybe they probably don't want to raise.
It was somebody who we once played 3-on-3 basketball with. One Morgan Murphy.
Oh yeah, delightful. She's the greatest, and she's so funny. And in fact, I was just citing one of her jokes. Somebody says, America's going to hell in a handbasket, and then Tim Allen walks in and goes, and the handbaskets aren't even made in America anymore. It's solid. So yeah, Woody Johnson, despised by everybody that works for him. I mean, I don't think enough has been made of, like, if Woody Johnson had just taken a fucking SpaceX flight to Mars, how much better off the Jets organization would be. Like, if he'd just been out of pocket for 3 years, like every single thing he touched turned to dust. Like every decision, like, hey, old man, go sell your fucking shampoo. Like, you don't know anything about football. You're terrible at this. And
it's way better that his sons were reading Madden power rankings and making personnel decisions off of that. That's even better. But by the way, I fully support it. I'm on the record. If you got the billions to buy a pro football team, and you do, I shame the devil if you then turn it over to experts. Why'd you buy it then? Of course you should tinker with it. It's the only differentiating factor left in pro sports anymore is how crazy the owner is.
Yeah, and obviously Mr. Kraft was smart enough to go, I don't think I know as much about football as these guys. That's the key to the whole dynasty. I'm going to turn it over to the cyborg. I'm not.
That's why Dan Rooney is the better owner, because he owned the team and also knew ball and in fact built that team, as I think we've talked about on previous episodes.
Great Bill Nunn. So, but when you talk about like GMs talking about their quarterback situation, my favorite GM quarterback situation of the week was the you know how like generic candidate always polls better than the actual nominee. Like it'd be great if you could just nominate guy, random. Just don't, as soon as you put a name on it, the polls go down. So at this point, Anthony Richardson,
better option, right? That just call him better option.
Anthony Richardson is running neck and neck with TBD. Like they've said, it's going to be a quarterback competition. Really, with who? Oh, we don't know yet. Literally anybody.
I like that guy.
Anybody we bring in off the slag heap of available quarterbacks will be neck and neck with the guy we spent the number 4 draft pick on. It's so insane. What's the opposite of a vote of confidence? Hey, man, you might be able to beat out this guy we haven't thought of yet.
Well, I mean, we've seen what he can do. We could probably trip over somebody that'll provide that level of.
It is so bad when you whiff. When you go for the guy and you whiff, it is grim.
I go the other way with that. I think the Rams showed us they didn't whiff at all. They won the Super Bowl for it, but they gave away everything and repeatedly. It wasn't like they just said, let's trade, let's Mike Ditka this thing and give away our entire draft to get one guy. They did this over and over again. They kept giving away their draft picks to try and win it all, and then they did. And they're fine. They fell back a little bit. They didn't hit they didn't hit the bottom of the barrel or anything. They treaded water for a little while, but they're right back. They almost beat the Eagles. It's funny how history will forget that because and always the thing you saw last and the biggest stage and all that. But the Eagles will present for the next 100 years as one of the great powerhouse teams we've ever seen. But they almost lost at home to Matthew Stafford. I mean, they're a throw away from beating the Eagles in Philly. And and by the way, people are still talking about Matthew Stafford's better off in a dome. You were like, I don't think that's much of a limiting factor, at least as much as people see.
What was it? I'm trying to remember because, I remember on that last drive, whatever they got it to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2.5. I was like, you should run here. This should be a Kyren Williams run. And they dropped back and Jalen Carter got the sack that made it 4th and 12. And it was like, I think if you run it, you get the first down. If you don't, then you've got 4th and 1 and you can go play action there. But that was like, first of all, you didn't want to score on that play. The way the clock was, it was like, that was not a good play call. And Jalen Carter obviously saving the day for the Eagles.
I agree, especially I think you and I probably, if we put our heads together, could outwit Sean McVay with his play calling. But obviously one of the best there is. Yeah, it is remarkable to me. Now I'm in season frame of mind. How often on 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 6, if you know you're going to go for it on 4th down, why you don't run in that spot? Most head coaches or OCs don't seem to acknowledge like we have 2 plays here so we can catch them because they're looking pass here on 3rd and 5-ish. We can run the ball, maybe get it there.
The exception to that is the world champs. Now 3rd and 6, they hand off to Kenneth Gainwell. Like it's like Barkley's not even on the field. And then or the court QB draw. They ran constantly when they knew they were going for it on 4th. And a trophy to show for it.
I just want to say 2 more things about QBs, and I'm trying to push the pace here a little bit so we can get to a couple other items, including Hackman. But I think to the opposite, I guess, of your point of like QB TBD, unnamed guy, anonymous. The other side is that once certain teams start getting attached, we forget that there are other teams out there that do still need QBs and maybe they're playing it closer to the vest. Watch out for Stafford going to the Colts, maybe the Titans. It sounds like maybe they're looking QB, but maybe not Abdul Carter, in which case they're going to need a QB probably. And Indianapolis is the other one. I think Aaron Rodgers makes sense in Indy. If you draft a QB, if you want to develop Anthony Richardson, and if Aaron Rodgers has accepted his new reality, which is he's not a superstar anymore and has to accept somebody learning at his knee for a year and all that, I think Indy makes sense. And also the New York Giants. I keep saying it. I've said it for 2 or 3 months now, but I think that would be the funniest result of them all. And by the way, if Matthew Stafford leaves LA, then who's their quarterback if it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, right? Daniel Jeremiah was on here a couple weeks ago, and he predicted it would be Sam Darnold in that case. And I think that would work out just well for the Rams fans as well, given what Kevin O'Connell just did with Darnold up in Minnesota. I think that would work out just fine too. But don't assume just because the teams we're hearing are the only ones in play here. There are going to be some other people, reaching out to get some of these brand name QBs and or student athletes.